When I started playing Path of Exile 2, I was able to finish the campaign within 15 hours, so during that time I learned quite a lot of things that can help you make your playthrough much faster. On top of that, even after I was done with the campaign, while I was making some guides and I was talking to some people, I learned even more stuff that even I wish I knew during my leveling. So today I want to share with you my top 10 the most important tips that are going to make your campaign playthrough much smoother. So let's start with the first one, which is make sure to check the vendors every time you level up. So for example, in Act 1, you talk to Renly, who sells just some regular equipment, and Una, which sells some caster stuff and flasks. But not only that, make sure you can optimize it. And the way you can do that is by preparing something on your clipboard. So for example, what I am doing is I have skill, which sorts the items that have plus to any level of skills on them. So this one actually doesn't have anything. And movement speed, this is mostly for the second vendor, and rare for any rare items. So this is why this is highlighted, because it is rare. So this make it so whenever you go to the vendor, you don't have to go through every piece of item. If you know what you are looking for, you can just type it in here and you're good. You know, you just check this item. It is not that great, and you just move on. Then you go to Renly. You type the same thing. I don't care about these weapons because I'm caster, then I move on, and I have movement for movement speed boost. So let's check out these movements. And these ones are actually very, very nice boots. For level 8, I would definitely buy it. 1.5k gold. Maybe you actually would not have as much gold at that point, but these boots are definitely worth it. Let's check out this. And this is the blue boots, much cheaper, but also give good amount of movement speed and some fire rest. So if you don't have that much gold, you could also buy this. And let's check out the second tab. This one sells armor, another pretty good one, just some life, armor, it is a rare one. Another armor with some armor, energy shield and life. Boots, I actually got very lucky with this one. 3 pairs of boots with movement speed, that's actually pretty good vendor. And here, some gloves with strength. These ones I actually wouldn't buy, this I also probably wouldn't buy. This helmet is actually pretty good too. Some attributes, so intelligence, fire, and life. So if you know what you are looking for, it doesn't take that much time to go through the vendor, especially this one. If you know what kind of weapons you need, if you are a caster, you just type most of the time just plus to skill gems. This is the most important stat that you are looking for, and just buy it. Now the second tip is kind of connected to the first one, and it is about the weapon types. So for example, as you can see here, I do have the Galit staff, and it has Freezing Shard as an implicit, which means it gives you Freezing Shard ability when you equip it. So I have it right now here. And it is a cold ability, which means that this staff can actually only roll plus to cold spell skills, so it cannot roll plus to fire. So for example here, I actually do have a fire staff, which has Living Bomb, which is fire ability, and it does have +1 to all fire spell skills. So for example, if you are maybe struggling with the weapons, and even when you are checking vendors and you cannot find any +2 skills, what you can do is you can find Galit staffs if you are playing a cold build like I was, or you can just find them on the ground or buy from the vendors and use transmutations and augmentations and hope to hit +2 cold skills, and you would not do that on the fire stuff. And it's probably something similar for some other builds. I don't know about other weapon types, what they can roll on the implicits and what are the connected modifiers, but there is probably something similar connected to that. But also there is a separate modifier, which is +1 to all spell skills, and this one can actually roll on all of these stuff. So this one is Bone Blast, which is Chaos wand, and it has +1 to all spell skills. So there is still a chance that you're gonna find a weapon with ability that is not connected to your build, and it still is going to be useful for you because it just has +2 to all spell skills. And also there are weapon types that have an ability that is not connected to any elements. For example, I am using Sigil of Power, and this one has +6 to all cold spell skills. So this basically means that this stuff can roll all of the elemental levels of skills. So it is a bit harder to roll specific one that you want, but this one just had it naturally. I bought it from a vendor, and then I augmented and exalted it, and that's a weapon I am using. Now the third tip is about the Reforging bench and Salvage bench. So the way you unlock them is Salvage bench in Act 1, you have to do the quest Rally Workshop, you just have to find some tools in this area, Ogam Village, and you're gonna unlock the Salvaging bench. And then at the Act 3, you're gonna go to It's loading such a long time. To the Molten Vault, and here you have to kill the boss, Mektul, the Forge Master, and once you kill it, you go back to the town, talk to the NPC, and you're gonna unlock the Reforging Bench. And the way they work, Salvage Bench can salvage items that have sockets, and it's gonna give you the Artificer Shards, which are pretty good because they add additional sockets to your items, and then you can put some runes in them, which can be pretty good for some additional life or some resistances, depending on what you need. Also, the Reforging Bench is actually pretty useful if you are really unlucky with, let's say, weapons. So here I found 4 Gelid stars and I was transmuting and augmenting them, trying to get +2 level skills, and I was unlucky. But it's not over, because now I have a Reforging Bench, so I can go here and I can put 3 bases here, and then I can reforge, and I'm gonna get a new one. So I get basically a 4th staff. So if you get unlucky, maybe you're gonna get lucky here. And let's identify it, and let's see if I got lucky or not. I should have some wisdom scrolls here. And unfortunately here, I also didn't get any. But then maybe I have another one. Let me check. Oh, I actually have one more. Go again. Let's see. Another unidentified. Still unlucky, and so on and so on. So if you get unlucky with some kind of a weapon or even other items, you can still reforge. And it's very good when you actually find some good bases, and especially with rare items. So if you have some good item bases that don't roll necessarily anything good, it's actually sometimes a good idea to just keep them in your stars so that later on you can reforge them instead of selling them. Let's see what's gonna happen when I'm gonna put 1 rare and 2 blue, just to show you. Actually, you cannot do that. So yeah, they actually have to match. They have to be all 3 blue or all 3 yellow. So that's another good tip. Now let's talk about the weapon swap. And weapon swap is something that I don't think is utilized as much as it should be. And it can give you a lot of power. So for example, on my weapon swap, just to show you, I'm gonna go outside of the town. What I have is I have 2 hammers, and I am using a Leap Slam. So here I have a level 7 Leap Slam, level 7 because it requires level 7 at least, but it also requires strength, and I don't have that much strength, so I don't want to have too high of a level of a Leap Slam for the strength requirements, so I kept it at level 7. And now, look at my weapons. Whenever I am using Leap Slam, and it is here, hidden on A, I am using it, and let's say I have staff equipped, I am using Leap Slam, it is automatically swapping to my hammers and I'm leaping. First, there's some additional mobility, but then what happens when I am using Frostbolt? It swaps automatically to the staff and then leap, and you can just run around leaping. Then when you hit something, you just swap to Frostbolt and it swaps to your staff, and then you leap again, and it's basically some additional mobility. And there is a bunch of other things you can do with different weapon types. For example, I'm using here stuff with Sigil of Power. So what you can do, this one just gives you a sigil on the ground that gives you some additional damage. If you want more damage and you don't have the very good weapon with that ability, you can put it in the weapon swap, and it's gonna happen like basically the same thing. You're gonna swap to that weapon, use Sigil of Power, and go back to your main one. And the way you have to set it up so that it actually goes back to your main weapon is on Frostbolt. I have this here, and I have to untick the second set, because if I keep it like this, what's gonna happen is I'm gonna leap, and then I'm gonna cast Frostbolt, but it's gonna keep on my hammers. So you cannot do it this way. You have to make sure that at least your main ability doesn't have it. I actually did it on every single ability, so all of them are not being used on the second set, so they automatically swap to the first one. And another good idea about the weapon swap is using mana drain. So that's actually something I was using for a long time. You just put mana drain in here, and then when you're running around using your flask and so on, you're having a good time. But then at some point, what if you actually run out of mana and you don't have any mana flasks? Then what's going to happen is I'm just gonna run to some kind of monster. Let me find something, and I'm just gonna press the mana drain button, and it swaps automatically to this weapon, and then I'm gonna cast ability, and it swaps back to the staff. So yeah, it's also a good source of mana regeneration. And now let's talk about the side content. So in my last video, I was talking about the permanent buffs that you can get by doing some of the side content. For example, when you kill Crowbell, you get +2 additional passive skill points. But there's of course a lot of other things. So if you're struggling maybe with gear, you can kill here, for example, the Radic Ritual. You're gonna get some additional loot here, Crop Circle, even more loot. So remember, if you're struggling, to not just do the permanent stuff, but also go for some other things. And actually one good example of something like that I only found out yesterday, so I didn't know it when I was making that video, is in Act 3, where you just start and you go to Sunswept Marsh, and I'm gonna show you it right now. So here at the Sunswept Marsh, you can find the Orok Campfire. And here you're gonna have to kill 2 elite monsters, so here they are. I'm just gonna kill them quickly, and behind them there is always basket. And first time when you click on this basket, you're always gonna get lesser jeweler's orb, which is the currency that you need to unlock your third support. So it is very important to do it when you are in this area, and it's always guaranteed. And it's actually the same thing for the second time you are in Act 3, so on Cruel difficulty. Again, you're gonna go to the Sunswept Marsh and you're gonna go to Orok Campfire, and it's again gonna be lesser jeweler's orb. So you're gonna be able to get 2 of them from the campaign. Now let's talk about the defenses. So how can you survive during the campaign? So first, and in my opinion the most important tip, is instant life flask. And this is basically a roll-on prefix on a flask which says 20 or 25% of recovery is applied instantly. And it is very important because very often when something hits you, let's say it hits you for 70% of your life, and you press your life flask, it's just gonna slowly start ticking up and you're gonna get your life recovered. But when you are just getting hit constantly, you're just gonna die anyway. So what very often ends up happening is I get hit and I instantly spam my life flask like 3-4 times in a row, and my life just go up, and it's like full immediately. It's very important and it helps you with surviving a lot. And the next thing you should know about is that areas at the end of each act are just straight up way harder than anything else. So for Act 1, that would be the Ogham Manor, and it is underground. Ogham Manor. It's actually not as hard as some of the other areas. In my opinion, the area before it, which is, let me find it, the Manor Ramparts, this zone is actually pretty hard. The monsters are hitting like crazy over there. So just be careful when you are in this area. And usually when you pass it and you enter the next act, it's actually not as hard anymore. And in Act 2, there is, in my opinion, the hardest area in the entire game, which is the, let me find it, the Dreadnought and Dreadnought Vanguard. In this area where you are there, just make sure to just take your time, go back to town, refill your flasks by clicking on a wheel, and just clear it slowly. If you are playing my build, maybe freeze enemies, just be safe and take your time. It might take you like 10-20 minutes to go through the area, but it's gonna be faster if you do it this way rather than just go in and die and then repeat again and again and again and just never finish it. Just take your time. That's my biggest tip. And then at the Act 3, that would be basically this Val area at the end. I actually cannot show you here. I'm gonna check the other one. So here that would be the Agorad, but in my opinion the Utsal, the area where there is the Viper boss, this area is very hard. The monsters are hitting there like crazy, and especially they do deal a lot of poison damage, which actually using a charm for poison damage could be actually pretty useful for some Chaos Resist or for just immunity to poison. So just be careful in these areas. And the next tip is about boss fights. So even though I am playing a range build, I did find that very often just being in melee on bosses is actually just much easier. So this way you can just, first of all, if you are playing a Spark build early on, you can just cast your Orb of Storms and Flame Wall, and you can just roll around the boss and just deal damage continuously, and it's just easier this way, and not only safer, but also you deal more damage. But on top of that, most of the abilities of, well, most of the bosses in the entire game are actually easier to dodge when you are close to them. It is not true for all of them. Some of them stay far away from them, but for most of them, just roll around them, learn bosses' abilities patterns, and yeah, just try to dodge all of their abilities. And it's especially important on casters because casters don't have that great of a defenses, so you just have to dodge and everything, unfortunately, and kill bosses faster, and being in melee also helps with that. And finally, for the last tip, and this is a very simple one, but it still should be helpful, delay your trial. So Trial of Sekema is level 22, and I actually did it at like level 30. If you need some player power, you probably are gonna have issues with doing, and it's kind of counterintuitive. You might think that, oh, I'm struggling during the campaign with some zones, so I probably should go and do the trial to get some power spike, and then I'm gonna have easier time. But if you are struggling in the campaign, then you are for sure going to be struggling in the trial, and you're not gonna be able to complete it. So just save yourself some time. Instead of just failing it like 3, 4, 5 times before you finally can do it, just level up, do some more zones, and then come back to the trial later. And it's especially true for the Chaos trial. This one is just much harder. You can do it maybe even when you are in the Act 4, maybe even Act 5, just go back and do it. There is no rush, unless you are playing some kind of Ascendancy that gets a huge benefit, which most of the time is not that important, but yeah, just delay your trial. And in case you don't know, the third one you actually cannot do during the campaign. To get the third one, you have to drop either Inscribed Ultimatum for the Chaos trial or the coin for the Trial of Sekema, at least item level 65, which drop only from the maps. So just to show you, let me go to the stash. Here I have a few of them. So this one is 65, that would give me third Ascendancy. All of these would give me that, but these ones would not. So that's very important. So even though you might drop the Inscribed Ultimatum with 7 trials, but it's item level, so area level 60, it would still not give me the Ascendancy points. So make sure you do one with 65 plus. So yeah, I hope all of these tips were helpful, and see you in the next video.